let's talk about shooting fouls. If you came up learning the traditional values of basketball, then you likely heard a coach, former player, or maybe even a parent say, great scorers know how to get to the free throw line. This is a statement that will always ring true in basketball, as throughout history, the best scorers in the game had a healthy balance of field goals and free throws to increase their scoring averages while conserving their energy, making them more efficient and even tougher to guard. Or maybe they had a rough start to a game and they want to see some easy ones go through the net to regain some kind of rhythm. Or in dire cases, they want to disrupt their opponent's momentum and draw fouls in the effort to trim a large deficit. Right? Drawing fouls can be a cheat code in that way, as getting your team in the bonus and supplementing defensive stops with those free throws can sneakily bring your team back in the game. However, since the rise of the three-point shot, drawing fouls haven't been as respected as they once were, and there are a few reasons for this. Number one, drawing fouls slows the game down, which in this era of high-octane, up-tempo basketball, that doesn't exactly sit well with casual fans. You may remember the instance where James Harden was at the foul line and a heckler shouted, to which Harden replied. Secondly, most of the time, an increase in three-point attempts means a decrease in attempts at the basket, where contact usually happens the most. So, for example, Stephen Curry. This is a guy that doesn't get to the free throw line a whole bunch because he shoots a lot of threes. You know, for his career, he averages around 9 three-point attempts and only 4 free throw attempts. Now, another good example of this would be how this season, Anthony Edwards' three-point attempts have jumped up to 10 a game compared to almost 7 last season, while his free throw attempts have gone down from 6 to 4 a game. And third, free throws haven't been as respected as they once were due to a new trolling term added to the basketball dictionary in the recent years: foul merchants. Because three-pointers hold more weight now than ever before, guys who have a knack to get to the free throw line are often dubbed foul merchants by casual fans. You'll hear this often when reading posts about guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Joel Embiid, Luka Doncic, and Trae Young. Now, I will say, part of this is because the NBA has cracked down on how shooting fouls have been officiated over the last few seasons. They wanted to make sure that unnatural movements weren't rewarded, as some of the guys I just mentioned were guilty of excessive flailing to get a whistle. And while I respect the NBA's desire to enforce the integrity of the sport and clarify what constitutes as a shooting foul, they forgot that even in this lovely game, there were always tricks to the trade. You may remember this video from Time magazine where Kobe Bryant once detailed one of his tricks to the trade as a defender.
You know, it's a little trick for the weekend warriors over there.
Trick.
You know,
you like tricks.
Once this guy makes his move with his right hand, what you try to do is you try to pin this arm. See this? See this arm right here? It's a strong hand. You pin this because you know he's inevitably going to come back to a strong hand, right? So now when he makes that move, now he can't come back. Watch, try to cross over. Uh-oh. That ball pops out.
Now, the difference between Kobe Bryant and a lot of players nowadays is that they will try a trick like this and make it too obvious, or even do it right in front of the referee's face. Kobe, on the other hand, tried to do it inside the referee's blind spots. So when he knew they didn't have a good angle at it, that's when he pulled his trick of the trade. They wouldn't see it, wouldn't call foul. Of course, he did also benefit from just playing in a more physical era where those ticky-tack fouls weren't always called. But either way, I think you get my point. Now, additionally, now that more players know this trick exists, more of them are going to complain when it is used against them, right? Equally, more guys are going to try to do it, but also more guys are going to complain and yell at the ref like, hey, do you see him grabbing my arm? Things of that nature. Now, the thing is, though, this trick, while used defensively, it evolved once James Harden started using this arm pin on offense. All right, nobody, at least in my eyes, nobody ever really thought to do that. And I think James Harden, knowing that his Euro step move was unstoppable, he knew his defenders would try to strip him on the way up. So what did James do? Just before he picked up his dribble, he would lock arms with the defender either as he Euro stepped or even just went straight into a shooting motion, and it would be a defensive foul every time. Why? Because this game is so fast, the refs wouldn't even be able to see Harden's trick unless, of course, they reviewed it and saw it in slow motion. And at that time, fouls couldn't be challenged. A smart move by James. Again, I know it's an unpopular opinion, but that's a smart move by James Harden, especially at the peak of his career. Smart move. A headache for defenses, though. And another reason James Harden actually draws fouls is due to something that has went under the radar for years, in my opinion, even though it was right in front of our faces the whole time. And that was his shooting form. All right, see, most people point to the fact that because James Harden is a left-handed player, he's automatically tougher to guard because most basketball players are used to guarding right-handed players. Makes sense. But I can take this a little bit further. When you look at the type of jump shots that James Harden takes, much of them are heavily contested. Most scorers who take these kind of heavily contested shots tend to bring the ball either like higher up or even behind their head for some guys, right? Example off the top of my head include Tracy McGrady, Jamal Crawford, and DeMar DeRozan, especially young DeMar DeRozan. He brought it above his head a little bit more than he did as he got older and stronger. Other scorers who have taken contested shots usually don't have their shooting arm, more specifically their elbow, perfectly squared to the basket. And here I think of guys like Allen Iverson, Ray Allen, and Paul George, where their elbow was outward a little bit more, but it helps them push the ball up over taller defenders, right? But James Harden is unique in the sense that not only is he left-handed, but his elbow is tucked almost unrealistically squared to the hoop. This means that defenders are highly susceptible to fouling him when he shoots. All right. If the contest is too aggressive, they'll jump into his body, and they will also have a harder time avoiding that contact with his elbow forearm area. OK, which is the danger zone, if you know, right? As getting hit in this area affects a shooter's jump shot the most. OK, he's lefty and his elbow is tucked a little bit more inward than the average shooter, especially to be a left-handed player. It makes sense why James Harden got to the line so much. And for years, so many people tried to diminish or devalue his game in that way. And you know, I understand how it could be controversial, but like I said, it was in our faces the whole time. Most guys who take those contested shots their elbow is not that close, right? So that to me stood out the most with James Harden. Now, like I said, unlike his trick with the Euro step, this is no trick of the trade. It's literally how he shoots the ball, right? Which brings me to my next example, as DeMar DeRozan, despite being right-handed, shares similarities with James Harden in the sense of how he generates contact simply due to how he shoots the basketball. DeMar DeRozan, especially as he got stronger over the years, is another player who uses his elbows to his advantage. He, like Harden, uses the Euro step often in the open court, but DeMar's is a bit more elusive as opposed to a method to draw fouls. However, DeMar also mastered the low pickup, where he drops the ball low on his last dribble before the Euro or before his gather, so that when defenders go for the strip, they hit his wrists as he starts his shooting motion, and it's a foul almost every time. It's a great move to do, knowing defenders will try to strip him as a last-ditch effort to get a stop. Now, additionally, DeMar's jump shot, particularly his fadeaway, sometimes is more of an elevation as opposed to a traditional fadeaway a la MJ, Kobe, and Dirk, right? DeMar tends to rise up over his defender, so while they play tight, it's almost a foul every time because they expect him to fade away from them. But DeMar, knowing they are close, wisely chooses to simply rise up oftentimes so he can get that contact either from the jump, right, on his body, or more often on his elbow on the way up as he shoots. The fadeaway has become more controversial, I feel like, nowadays because of the natural leg kick, and let me emphasize the natural leg kick that happens when performing the move. As Kobe Bryant once detailed, after studying and watching MJ and working on his own fadeaway, he realized that that leg kick, that leg extension, gave balance and leverage while in the air. So anytime a player fades towards their dominant hand, that leg is going up. It's a natural motion. It is not a malicious leg kick, as many people like to point out nowadays. But see, like I said, nowadays, these internet referees fail to understand that and presume that that leg kick is an unnatural motion, especially when a defender gets too close, to the point where sometimes NBA referees even started calling those offensive fouls at times, which I think presents a broader question of, is it a leg kick or is the defender threatening the offensive player's landing space? It could go either way. So I think that might be one other reason why DeMar doesn't opt for a true fadeaway all the time. But the point is, these two moves, the low pickup and that fadeaway, that natural motion, again, that natural shooting motion, having that elbow in a little bit, I think it's made DeMar one of the best in the league at drawing fouls and really put him generally at around 7-8 attempts a game throughout much of his prime. Even as far as last season, right? 7 a game. Now, admittedly, if you pay attention to DeMar and you watch his games over the course of his career, this is one reason why he feels like he's always fouled every possession because it's simply not a trick, right? It's not a trick of the trade. It's simply his shooting motion. And again, when he does that low pickup, most guys are going to try to strip it and they're going to hit his wrist. He should have every right to feel like he should get it's a foul every time because that's usually what happens. And then another trick of the trade was first seen by Kevin Durant in his early years in OKC, most notably his 2009-10 campaign in which he became the youngest scoring champion in NBA history, averaging 30.1 points a game at just 21 years old. Now, how did a skinny scorer like Kevin Durant manage to do that in an era that was still slower basketball and much more physical? The good old sweep through move. While not his only way to draw fouls, obviously, it became a go-to move for him because he wasn't strong enough to overpower a defender like Ron Artest, for example. But he was tall enough to where most guys were going to try to contest his shot. So KD realized that the tighter the defense, the closer they were to his shooting pocket. So if he simply just raised up to shoot, they would hit his wrist or his forearm on the way up, not expecting him to shoot in that position. Now, unfortunately for scorers, in 2023-24, the NBA decided that they would stop calling it as a foul, period. All right, it would be a no call. But for its time, contrary to popular belief, it wasn't flailing and it wasn't excessive. It was smart. Call it like it is. It was smart. And it helped lead to 30 points on almost 10 of 20 from the field with 10 free throw attempts a game. Okay? The math checks out, right? Given what I said earlier, right? Great players know how to get to the free throw line. If I'm taking 20 shots and I'm skilled enough to make 10 of those, that's an efficient 20 points already. Add 10 free throws and say I go 10 for 10 in a game, that's another 10 points, equaling 30 points, averaging for an 82-game season. And breaking it down even further, that's essentially making 2 to 3 field goals within 5 attempts, plus at least 2 free throw attempts every quarter. All right, KD kept the game simple. He stuck to the fundamental philosophy of scoring, and it led to a historic season, okay? Thankfully, Kevin Durant recognizes that there are other ways now to draw fouls, and to this day gets to the line at about 7 times a game, even at 36 years old. So, again, he knows how to get to the free throw line. So when I think about Trae Young stopping on a dime and rising up to shoot as he feels the defender on his back, Joel Embiid using rip-throughs, sweep-throughs, low pickups, or the classic pump-fake lean-in, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander dipping his shoulder low enough to create contact and rise up to shoot, I don't see these guys as foul merchants. As I said, there are tricks to the trade and always have been. They are smart when you use them, and they are annoying when you're on the opposite end of those. That's why it's called a trick to the trade. And besides, I'm sure these guys would love to pull up to your job and see the tricks of the trade that you do that isn't necessarily frowned upon, nor is it widely acceptable in the way you were trained either. Right? You got some tricks to the trade too. These are all guys who have averaged or were close to averaging 30 points a game. They simply know how to get to the free throw line. That's why it's a skill, because not everybody can do it. Not everybody has the luxury and the IQ and the instincts to perform some of those tricks of the trade and find those little tricks and study film and see, hey, this is how defenders are playing me. If I do this, I could probably get to the free throw line a little more. You know, haters, they tend to rise when you do something well, right? When MJ isn't the GOAT, he's the gambler. When Shaq isn't the most dominant, he has no skill. When Kobe missed a game winner, he was suddenly Kobrick Bryant. Now, don't get me wrong. There are times I've watched Joel Embiid try a bit too hard to get a whistle. You know, there were times where I watched Trae Young and I'm like, dude, really? And then I fear sometimes that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to give himself whiplash with all that head snapping that he does. But most of the time, I'm familiar with their games. I understand the objective they're trying to achieve. These guys would rather get easy free throws than force shots to get points, right? I think we're in this era where, you have to have a bag, and if you don't have a bag, then you're invalid. Like, man, that's not how it's done at all. And even a guy like Shai Gilgeous, right? This is a guy who does have a bag, and he knows how to get to the free throw line. Hence why he's already in his young career averaged 30 points per game multiple times. You know, when you're a high usage player, especially in today's game, you don't want your buckets to be hard, right? You want them to come as easy as possible, knowing you're going to see all kinds of traps, double teams, and even zones. And since the beginning, the best way to do that was to get to the foul line, especially as one ages in their career. So how about we go back to appreciating what is sort of a lost art in today's game, or maybe I should say a disrespected art in today's game, and simply acknowledge one of the most important and fundamental parts of getting buckets.